We're good to go.
Okay, so hello everybody today. Thank you so much for joining us for the Maximizing Your College Experience breakout session. We have a really exciting session planned for you all today. It's really a great segue from Sandra's opening speech this morning. But first and foremost, my colleague and I here will just really quick introduce ourselves, and then we will get with the rest of our agenda. So to introduce myself, my name is Jenyia Wilson, and I am one of the CDI counselors, and I will be kind of your moderator today. So nice to see you all. And then I'll let my colleague introduce herself.
Cool. And so my name is Claire Ettinger, and I'm also one of the CDI counselors. And my job will be more of the logistics side. So I will be managing the chat, any questions that you guys have, anything like that. And so really quick before we start, I wanted to go over some of the logistics. And so I believe with the extended amount of time that we have, we will have about 30 minutes. We have questions that we've already created for the panelists that are going to be speaking to you guys. But at the end of our time together, we will leave about like 5 to 7 minutes for a Q&A. So if you do think of any questions while the panelists are answering any questions, feel free just to put them in the chat. And then, just so you don't forget if you feel like you might, feel free to put them in the chat. And yeah, then we will be good to go.
All right, so first and foremost, I'm going to go ahead and really quickly introduce each of our panelists for today. So we have three. First and foremost, we have Mauricio Novoa. Mauricio is actually a CDI class of 2010. He was born and raised in Glenmont, Maryland to Salvadorian refugees, and he attended Gettysburg College and still currently lives in Gettysburg, PA. During his time there, he worked with middle school and high school students in a migrant education after school program, helped tutor in adult ESL classes, and currently works at Casa de la Cultura programs. He also received his master's degree from Queen's University of Charlotte. And also, Mauricio is a renowned poet. His first full-length collection of poetry, Memorias from the Beltway, was published in 2020, and he also has been published in multiple journals. So that's our first panelist for today. Welcome. We also have Rundell Douglas. Rundell is actually CDI class of 2012. He has his MPH in Global Health Policy from George Washington University and a BS in Biology from Boston College. He currently works with Avalere Health, providing clients with evidence-based research and data-driven analytics to understand the impact of policy and regulatory changes on their business lines. Prior to joining Avalere, he was a policy analyst at Horizon Government Affairs, supporting clients and coalitions with health policy research and data analysis that spanned a variety of issue areas. And then last but not least, we have Miss Erica Fuentes. She is a proud Albert Einstein High School CDI alum class of 2013. As a Beneke Kier Scholar at the University of Maryland, College Park, she earned her BA in Political Science with minors in Law and Society, U.S. Latinx Studies, and International Development/Conflict Management. She graduated cum laude. Her passion for immigrant rights led to her work as an immigration paralegal for a year post-grad before joining Congressman Jamie Raskin's team as a junior I cannot speak today, sorry, a junior constituent services advocate in 2019. Today, she currently serves as the Congressman's senior case manager, overseeing all incoming constituent assistance requests while planning and engaging in district outreaches for MD District 8. So that is just a little intro of all of our panelists for today. Thank you all so much for joining us. And so now we can kind of start jumping into the questions, if that's okay with everybody. Okay, so really, when you think about the topic of today, we're talking about maximizing your college experience. So we have a list of questions for our panelists that really kind of, touch on the different areas of being a college student and kind of gauging what that was like for all of them. So first and foremost, in terms of campus involvement, could any of you or all of you talk to us about what your first year of college was like and what that adjustment experience kind of felt for you? So anybody can start, and I'll turn the floor to you all.
I guess I could go ahead and kick that off. I guess for me, for my first year, it was a little tough because, for one, it was also like first generation, like going to college for the first time. And then also I was like moving away from my family. So I was like all the way in Boston. So a whole new city, a whole new place, no one I know. But over time, the first year, I just kind of took it, just trying to get to know the area, campus, and trying to figure out what plans do I have for myself for those 4 years. Try to understand what activities were available to me and just like how could I navigate that new landscape. So I think it took me about like till the second semester before I fully started getting involved in stuff. Because I just want to like take a very easy case because, coming from high school, we did all these activities trying to get into college and this stuff. It's kind of like taking a mental pause for myself as well and just say, just see what's available for the time being before kickstarting things right away and just, make friends as well. So
Absolutely.
kind of like, yeah.
Thank you so much. Anybody else?
Sure, I can answer that a little bit. So, I went to the University of Maryland College Park, and I had the wonderful opportunity to live on campus as a result of my scholarship. And, even though I was 25 minutes away from home, I really made like a commitment to myself to have like that full college experience and to limit going home as much as possible. And I really did do that. I do feel like I had that, that traditional college experience in the sense that I was away on campus, living on campus, and really limiting how often I went home. And so, that first year is, to be completely transparent, it is going to be a little bit tough, especially if you go to a bigger school, especially if you go to a predominantly white institution. It's going to be definitely a culture shock, especially coming from some of the schools that we went to where, it's very diverse. It's a majority minority in a lot of cases. And, you're used to your group pretty much. So I was living in honors housing. So, I definitely felt like that minority status for the first time in my life. And that was a little bit shocking and hard to deal with. But the important thing to remember is that no matter the school that you go to, there's going to be a community for you. It's just a matter of finding it. And sometimes it takes like meeting one person that will like unlock this whole like community for you. And I definitely feel like that was the experience for me. It took me probably a semester, kind of like Rundell mentioned to get school in order, and then finally meet like that one classmate that was like, there's definitely a diverse community here, but like, let me show you. And they showed me all these different groups and clubs and spaces on campus where I could connect with those folks, and it was amazing. And I finally did feel that sense like, okay, I found my niche here. Like I don't always have to be with like the people that I attend classes with or that I live in my housing with. You know, I could connect to other groups too. And slowly you also start to see that there are groups and clubs and organizations that are that exist on campus around your passions as well. So for me, my passion has always been immigrant rights, immigration advocacy, and there were groups on campus that were doing that work and that were connecting with other schools in the DMV and you know, organizing around that and you know, doing protests in DC, doing lobbying or advocacy days in DC and stuff for those things. So so yeah, so definitely don't get discouraged your first semester, your first 2 semesters. You will feel homesick, but you know, you'll find your space in a matter of time.
Thank you so much. Okay. Yeah, Mauricio?
Yeah, so for me, that first year was very much about adjustment because I went to Gettysburg, which is only like an hour, 20 minutes from home, but it's a very different hour, 20 minutes from home. Go up in the Northern Maryland, it's like that. Lots of Confederate flags, lots of people that don't want me there. So it was very much about adjusting to the town and the campus. Because like Erica was saying, it was a predominantly white institution. So I definitely had to adjust to being around people that were very different from me, economically and racially. So I think the first club that I gravitated towards was the Latin American Student Association. Like that was like, I saw them and was like, okay, there's like 20 of us here on campus, but I'm no all 20 people. So that kind of gave me a nice foundation. And then as time went on, I adjusted to like the course load and just living on campus and figuring out how like the community is. I started to sort of branch out a little bit more and started volunteering for different organizations that it was all connected through the Center of Public Service, where I would eventually go do more for, but it started just volunteering in the places where I could volunteer, and it ended up becoming my job later in my time here. But yeah, it definitely took a little bit to just figure everything out because it was very much a culture shock. Like it was, I mean, I knew it was going to be that when I left home, but it's kind of like you don't really feel it until you get there and it kind of hits you in the face and you're like, oh, okay, I got to figure this out now. And yeah, it's an adjustment, but at the end you do find like where you fit in. And I think it's important to set the foundations early. If not, it'll be a little bit more difficult later on. So just finding people that you're comfortable with, because there will be different challenges that pop up depending on where you go to school and everything. But if you have that solid foundation, you have like people you can talk to about it and be comfortable around.
And to quickly touch base on that too, because I know we're all focused on the first year right now, but I do want to emphasize that you do not have to figure out all of your campus involvement inside the first year. It is very much a fluid process. Things, you will drop activities throughout your 4 years or 5, how long you want to take to finish that degree. Sometimes you will find new stuff along the way that you will want to get involved in. But as you know, as Mauricio and Eric have touched on, you know, a lot of these activities do come from a lot from your interest. Maybe it's like your surrounding environment, the activities happening there might inspire something in you to kind of approach a specific activity. Also, I know it's through conversation with people as well, because for me, I went in with biology or science, med school in my mind, but just through conversation, a lot of my friends or floor mates in my dorm was in business school. There's a lot of stuff that I learned through them, through entrepreneurship or like social impact programs. And that kind of got my interest flowing inside of those and tried like touch on activities kind of involved in those areas. And those kind of like led me towards the career that I'm in right now, just by exposing myself to those areas that I might not have been used to or might not know of in the past. So that's what it sounds like. You don't have to figure it all out in that first year.
Yeah, for sure. And we're definitely going to talk about that a little bit more a little bit later, which is kind of more focusing on like career, professional development. So thank you so much for sharing that. Kind of like focusing a little bit more again on like the involvement for all of you. Like, could you maybe share a little bit like more specifically about what that process was like with opening yourself up to those different opportunities or involvements that you kind of found as you were, you know, moving along your college experience? So maybe, you know, was that going to club fairs or talking to different peers on campus? How did you kind of step outside of your comfort zone and open yourself up to those opportunities, if you could share?
I guess I could share first. So I have always considered myself to be a very introverted person, just naturally. And so definitely at the beginning, you know, it was a little bit hard for me to put myself out there and like to step out of my comfort zone. You know, especially when talking to people, or, I would go to the club fairs and they would say our first meeting is this day. And you get kind of nervous about going because you don't know anyone, but it's something that you're interested in. So I would definitely say that make it a challenge to yourself too. If there's something that you're interested in, or it sounds like you're interested in, even if you don't have anyone go with you, even if you don't know anyone there, just challenge yourself to go at least once. And if you like it, you like it, and most likely you'll want to go again because you really liked it. And if you don't like it, you tried it, and then you can move on to the next thing. So that's definitely like how I kind of got the wheel starting on like what I ended up being involved in. And ultimately it pushed me to get really out of my comfort zone, because eventually I would join these clubs and, they would be looking for people to serve on the executive board, on the leadership board. And then, they're like, you know so much about this, like you should run for X, you should do this. And then, you're like nervous, but you're like, okay, I'll do it. And then you find out that you're really good at it, and you're like, why was I nervous all along? Like, this is something that I'm totally capable of doing. And like, I always tell people that, my junior year, I ended up serving as like president of one of the biggest Latinx political organizations that University of Maryland has. It still exists today, and I'm still involved with them. But, never my freshman year, if you would have asked me, like, if I was, if I saw myself being a president of a club, like with like dozens of members, organizing meetings with our campus administrator, campus president, planning agendas for that, planning proposals for things that we were asking for, and like executing them and presenting it to them, I would have thought like never in a million years, just because I was such a shy person. Like, I was always really smart. I was always all about academics, but I was shy. And that was something I remember my CDI counselors, would tell me too. And they worked so hard with me, like for my college interviews and stuff like that, because we both knew like that was definitely going to be a challenge for me, just to communicate, because I was so shy. And when you find things that you're passionate about, like I mentioned before, for me it's immigration rights, but it's also just civil rights, basic rights. When I was on campus, there were a few like hate crimes that happened and things like that, and the student body really organized around that. And when you find something that really like sparks you, you end up feeling like you have no choice but to step up to the plate. And I'm so thankful for that, because now I'm in a position where I feel like I'm I don't feel that shyness anymore. And I feel like it was because, you know, I realized like the power of my voice through the things that I was involved with in campus, and through the community too, that people built and that I was a part of, that, you know, uplifted each other. So definitely challenge yourself if you're one of those people that, you know, is scared to step out of your comfort zone, or you're like somebody that like is like, this is my interest and this is what I know. You know, if even if you think that you might have the slightest interest in something, challenge yourself to you know, to put yourself there for at least one time, and you might find yourself, you know, really loving it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, yeah, and I guess for me, it's kind of like a two-way process or two-way path. So the first side is just, as Erica said, a lot of it would be influenced by your own interest and activities that you want to be involved with. So if you have a particular major or particular interest that you have, you probably are more likely going to seek out activities that exist around that. And that one's just going to happen like naturally. But the second one is just like stuff is going to come to you out of nowhere. I know for my school particularly, activities are just going to be in your face everywhere you go, because everyone's trying to get someone to join their program or club or so on. So you're gonna see flyers everywhere. You're gonna have like activity fairs and so on. And just throughout the year, like certain things are gonna happen. You're gonna see them like, oh, I'm interested in that. What's that all about? And then other times, like it's just gonna come across your table unknowingly, even if it wasn't like a very obvious like activities on campus. And it just happens through conversation as well. You know, it's just talking to other folks, attending different club meetings or other activities, because you might find about something in another activity that you didn't even went for. And it's just like through that, because some clubs communicate with each other and try to share active information about the other groups. So there's other ways that you kind of come across different activities. One other one too, I would say, is even if an activity does not exist for you or what you're looking for, take in mind that you can take the opportunity to create that activity yourself. So even if a club that you are interested in does not exist, you could probably coordinate with like whatever activity organization that runs all the stuff on your campus, and trying to figure out like what are the logistics or processes for me to go about creating this new club or creating this new activity and so on. Because I know a lot of it with like the different protests that happened over the years when I was in campus and stuff, you know. So I thought we didn't have like a open or safe space for certain students to come and communicate and talk about these things. But it took like several students who saw that need and kind of came together to create like a group that allows us to have that open space to come and like address certain things or come to activities that kind of like improve social justice on campus. So just know that there's that option there to create those activities for yourself as well if you see it doesn't exist as well. And you could also go outside of your own campus, because I know we had worked with Boston University, Tufts University, other local colleges, and they were able to join different activities or programs within those schools if it's allowed or so on. But those are other options. So you don't have to like, stick on campus. There's other stuff outside of campus too that may be up to your interest as well.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, so I know for me it was like it started off with those club fairs because they were the easiest thing to go to. But then as I started to get to know people, they were involved, especially because I was meeting upperclassmen, so they were already plugged into stuff on campus. So they're like, oh, I need like a volunteer for this, or they're doing this. So I kind of ended up like Rundell was saying, like the opportunities kind of fell like in front of me. And I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. I'm not doing anything else. Except homework. Obviously, I was doing homework, but the rest of the time I wasn't. I was doing that stuff. And it was a good way to like pass the time. And then also, you know, because I was in college, first generation, I was broke, so I followed the opportunities that pay too, because you need money. So like even if it was like I'm like there was one of the local bar and grills needed a dishwasher, so like I'll do it. Like it was like a night, 5 hours, and I ended up meeting the guy that cut my hair for 5 years there, which I obviously haven't had contact with in a while. So but he held me down for a good portion of my time there. But it's a good, like, just those little opportunities are good ways to meet people, plug in with the place that you're, not only like the school, but where you're living at, because you don't know if that's going to be the place you end up staying. Like, I didn't imagine ever that I was going to live in rural Pennsylvania when I was in high school, but I'm still here. So like, because I was doing things in the community that I really enjoyed doing, and I met people that I really enjoyed being around. And so I ended up just creating community here. But yeah, follow the money.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That's actually a really great segue. So I know we don't have as much time, but this next question really kind of connects to what you just shared, Mauricio. So could any of you talk about, kind of expand on that, maybe about any meaningful relationships that really had an impact during your college experience, whether if that were, friendships, peers, mentors, professors, anybody that kind of really, made an impact on your college experience and that you're kind of grateful for that connection?
So I guess for me, one of the meaningful relationships I've ever built on campus was, it kind of goes back into that idea of like finding community and like knowing the resources on campus. So one of those resources that I was fortunate to found in my first year was called like Learning to Learn on Boston College campus. And what that was, it was kind of an extension of CDI in a sense. It was like working with like most of the first generation low income like students of colors, just to figure out like help them to navigate like the dynamics of college for the entire 4 years technically. Just learn what resources are available to you. And a lot of that just came like, they helped me a lot with financial aid. There's times that I did not even realize that there were certain things wrong with my financial aid, or I was not getting the amount of funds that I needed or should be receiving. So it's like they were advocating on my behalf. So I was able to like save myself a lot of like loan in the first place, and actually got a lot of grants that I was actually qualified for, but didn't know about. They also helped me with like academics too. It's like, sometimes I was like, this class is not working out this semester, but I don't want to like withdraw from it and have to like retake it because I don't know how to navigate that issue. So it was like with them, I learned that they had a program where like they paid for you to stay on campus during the summer, or they also paid for the class for you over the summer. So that also kind of removed a lot of financial stress. So I'd be like, you know what, I'm gonna withdraw from this class and just like retake it another time when I'm comfortable. And it's just through that I also like found different people who became like my lifelong friends after college as well, because we were all rocking inside that same boat. We're like, we don't know what the hell is going on right now. We're just trying to navigate as well. And it's like we're all new to this whole environment. And just through that, we just create our own bond, and we all kind of like learn stuff from each other as well. But for me, it's like those are people who are just like able to find those individuals who are able to advocate on my behalf on a lot of stuff that I may not have known being a first generation college student, and just also navigating different offices on campus. And to this day, every time I go back to campus, it is the first office I always go back to see and visit those individuals.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Anyone else? Okay.
Well, I guess I can go really quickly. So yeah, I completely echo everything that Rundell said. And I just want to, I guess, note that like anybody you meet in college is like a potential connection for you. So whether that's professors, whether that's, the staff that work at like, those resource offices, or, the Office of Diversity or whatever, or your department, whatever major you end up being, like the people that work in those offices, anyone around your classmates are potential connections and people that could be, not that people are of value, but people that could be valuable to you in the future. So, if there are professors that are doing, professors will mention like the work that they're doing, the research that they're doing. If there are professors that, are sharing work that you are really interested in and would like to know more about, don't be afraid to go up to them after class or to shoot them an email and say like, hey, like I'm really interested in what you shared in class, or the project you mentioned. Could you tell me more about it? Or, could I come into office hours and talk to you about it? And honestly, like professors, like they love themselves sometimes a little bit too much.
Yeah.
So when you do that, and when you reach out to them, it literally is like the highlight of their life. And they'll be willing to do it because they love any opportunity to talk about the work. And, it's because they're really passionate about what they're teaching, about what they're researching.
Absolutely.
So for me, I definitely had like those professors that, I ended up in their class like a couple times, or maybe they taught lower level, like bigger lectures, but they also taught like smaller seminars I ended up in like later on in my college career. And, I definitely built relationships with them and tried to build relationships with them. And one of the summers that, talking about getting paid and being broke, one of the summers, I think it was after my sophomore year, I was able to be a research aide for one of my professors' research projects, and he was paying like $10 an hour or something, but it was cool work that I was actually interested in, and you were getting, at least a little bit something to pay for your groceries. So definitely reach out to your professors, and then sometimes they're connected too. So my very first job after graduation, I didn't even apply for, I was kind of like just focused on graduating, and I was like not even thinking about jobs. And one of my professors served on a board for a nonprofit, and one of the other board members, heads his own law firm or whatever, and reached out to her and said, do you have any students? He knew that she was a professor. Do you have any students that you would recommend? I really need to hire like however many people he had to hire. And she reached out to me, she reached out to one of my friends, and she was like, if you guys are interested, like, I'll send your information over to him. And that ended up being my job for like a year after college. And it was great because I didn't really know what I wanted to do after college. So it gave me that time to kind of figure out what I wanted to do next. And then the job that I ended up doing after, which I'm still at, just in a different position now, also came from a connection I made in college. Talking about the clubs and reaching out to other colleges, like Rundell mentioned earlier, the work that, or the clubs I was involved with in college, we did do a lot of reaching out to other campuses. So we spoke to people at AU, we spoke to people at Georgetown, we had student connections there too, because a lot of those students were dealing with the same things that we were dealing, or doing work on the same things that we were doing. And so one of the girls I went to AU that, I just would see at these events and would talk to, and we just always stayed in touch. She ended up reaching out to me, that, the office of Congressman Raskin was looking for somebody to fill a position. And I was like, oh my gosh, I would love that. I just sent my resume to her, and like literally within a day I had an interview. So really, any connection, you might not think it at the time, but any connection that you make, any relationship that you can build, can really, really help you in the future. And you might not see it at that day and time, but it will come back later on, and you'll be shocked at how it plays out in the future.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So panelists, we only actually have about 3 more minutes before we're going to get pulled into the main session again. So if you all could take a few minutes maybe to put your contact information in the chat, and any students that might have questions, since we don't really have that much time for Q&A, perhaps we can kind of send some of those questions along to each of you, just in case students have, just some questions to ask down the line. But kind of to leave us off, in terms of where you all currently are in your professional careers, do you feel that your college experience has prepared you for this point in your life? And that can kind of be the question that we end with today until we're pulled into the main room.
For me, I would say I went in going in like biology, going to medical school, but through different circumstances, kind of changed my mind along the way. So in a sense of like where I'm at right now, I don't felt like my major helped me to with my career right now, but I would say it was a lot of taking what I've learned throughout the entire process and kind of get to the point that it's like college is not a linear process. It's such a fluid and a dynamic one. You're gonna learn so many things and drag in so many directions. But I want to advise like embrace it and just go with the flow. You know, it might seem scary and nerve-wracking at that time, but just take the challenge and expose yourself to those new opportunities because you never know where it will take you. Because right now I'm dealing with politics and I'm enjoying it. And I never wanted to deal with that before, but you know, just taking those different transferable skills from what you do know and just try to figure out a way on how to move forward with that. I know it's a lot, not much time to say anything, but yeah.
Awesome. Well, that's great. Thank you. I mean, it's absolutely true. You can just get pulled in so many different directions. I'm doing something completely different than what I majored in college. So that's what I did. Just go with the flow. Um, and so I know we are closing out the breakout room, but thank you all so much for sharing about your journeys. This is just really great and meaningful information for our students. It's just so important to get the most out of your college experience and kind of go beyond going to class and going back to your room, going home. Like you really want to get the most of that experience in order to have a rewarding outcome for your future. So again, thank you all so much for sharing your journeys, and thank you to all of our scholars here today for joining us for this session. And we just really appreciate this time to connect. So I hope everyone enjoys the rest of today, and we'll see you in the main room.
Thank you. Amazing, amazing.
Woo-hoo.